Hello and welcome. I'm Emerald Mosaic, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the stories we tell ourselves. So, picture this: you're at a party, and there's a person that you normally chat with, that every time you go to this party that you normally interact with. But today, instead of interacting with you, you see them kind of off to one side. They're quiet, a little fidgety, and they're not looking at you. They're interacting with other people, but they're just not interacting with you. They're kind of avoiding you, it seems. Now, how you interpret that information, the facts of the situation, the actual events, how you interpret them, depends on the stories that you are telling yourself. So, these stories originally, and a lot of times, usually in childhood, they kind of go back to what kinds of things did we experience in childhood? How did our caregivers treat us? How did teachers treat us? How did our peers treat us? And these kinds of things, they create a narrative that our mind creates. We know that the way our brain works is it thinks about past events, experiences that you have been through in the past, and it uses those events to predict what will happen in the future. And we also know that our brain tends to give great weight to negative experiences because that was a matter of survival. If, pardon my camera, if say, a hunter-gatherer society, there, if you know that there's a tiger around, and in the past there was a tiger that attacked people, and you were old enough to witness it, your brain is now going to be very high alert for anything similar to the events leading up to that attack, and anything close to that happens and your brain signals danger, right? So we know that this is true. It was a survival mechanism, and we also know that as you get older, a lot of things that in the past used to be a matter of survival, for a child, being taken care of by your caregivers, that's a matter of survival. So as we get older, then a lot of the things are no longer a matter of survival, especially in social situations. Now that I'm an adult, it's my responsibility to get my needs met, right? So unless you're disabled or, other extenuating circumstances, for the typical adult, you are reliant on yourself. And yes, you are interconnected with your community, but it is your responsibility to get your own needs met. So if you're not relying on somebody else to give you food, to give you shelter, to give you water, all the necessities, then a lot of this is just social. It's not a matter of survival anymore. If you can get your needs met on your own, it's not survival. So what happens is we have these core wounds. So we have these experiences from childhood that our brain uses to interpret the future, to interpret the present, and to predict what will happen in the future. So what is happening right now, our interpretation of it might have roots in a true situation. But right now, it might not be true. And that is where the problem happens. So some examples of, say, in this particular example of the party, here are some potential ways a person might interpret that situation. They think I'm ugly. She's about to end the friendship. They've been gossiping about me. He's feeling guilty about something. I don't know what it is, but he's feeling guilty. So that's just 4 examples of a way that you might possibly interpret the facts of that situation, the observable, objective facts. And the hard part in any situation is to separate out how you feel about the situation, your interpretation of the situation, and the actual observable, objective facts, right? So if you can separate those out and just look at the facts, you can see that there's many ways they can be interpreted. There's many possibilities here. But our brain automatically jumps to this one whatever that happens to be, because that is your history. That is where you tend to go. So, one of the things that we need to do is then to identify our emotions, because our emotions can reveal a lot about the story that we're telling ourselves. So, how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling worried? Am I feeling offended? Am I feeling suspicious? That will help identify what your story is. By the way, if you say I feel, and then you use a word that is the past tense of a verb, for example, I feel, where was my example? I feel insulted. That's not an emotion word. If you can reword it to say, it seems as if they are insulting me. If you can use that same root word, insult, and it's accurate to say, it seems as if they are insulting me, it's not an emotion. Now, if you say, I feel offended, that's, I feel that I am taking offense. Okay? That's what it means to feel offended. I am taking offense. But if you say, it feels as if they're offended, well, I'm sorry, but if you say, I feel they, that's not an emotion either. So be careful when you're labeling emotions that you're actually labeling the emotion, not a thought about what's happening. So, anyways, part of the reason why it's important to question the story is that if we never question the story, whatever our interpretation is of the facts, that will drive our behavior, our thoughts, our feelings. We might end up getting defensive. We might end up making accusations. We could actually cut ties with other people based on just our interpretation of things, and it might not be right. So this is where it's so important to actually, evaluate, am I seeing this correctly, or am I putting my own spin on it? So here are some ways that you might, some questions you might use to question your interpretation, to see if your interpretation might or might not be accurate. So, number one, what's another possibility? Okay, so I'm looking at this person. They're not looking at me anymore. Something's different. Is it that they think I'm ugly now? Is it that they were only pretending to be my friend? Is it that they're anxious about something that has nothing to do with anything happening here? Or, what are the other possibilities? Just noticing that there could be other possibilities will help start to get you out of the rut of the story you're telling yourself. Number two, what evidence contradicts the story I'm telling myself? Also, you have to ask, am I ignoring evidence that contradicts my story? Because we have a tendency to do that. We have a tendency to lock in on a story and then ignore anything that doesn't fit it. And that's just a human tendency. It's natural. It's common. Everybody does it. And a self-aware person will start to recognize, oh yeah, I'm ignoring evidence. And if I actually take into account these other things, like maybe this person is on their phone a lot, and they're not usually. Maybe they are sitting by you and just not really talking to you, but they are actually acknowledging some things you say. Maybe you're just tuning out because of your narrative, that you're not actually acknowledging that they are interacting with you some, and only focusing on the times that when they are not. So we have a tendency to ignore anything that contradicts our narrative. So that's something to pay attention to. Am I ignoring contradictory information? And what is that contradictory information? Number three, if I felt differently than I do right now, would I interpret this differently? So did I come into this party already feeling nervous? Did I come into it feeling insecure? Because how I feel in this moment will shape kind of, the narrative that I use. So what am I feeling right now? And what was I feeling right before I observed this? And if I felt differently, say if I had come in a happy, bubbly mood, would I just completely ignore it and go on my merry way and assume that everything's fine? Or, how would I feel about it if I was feeling differently? Because it matters. And then number 4, ask a trusted friend, a family member, a counselor, somebody who is you trust. If there's somebody at the party, somebody there with you who has seen what's going on, maybe you can pull them aside and say, hey, so-and-so usually interacts with me. I notice this is what's happening. Do you know what's going on? Do you know anything about it? Or have you noticed anything? Or is it just my imagination? And then number 5, ask the person themselves. Now, what I would not recommend going up to them and saying, hey, are you avoiding me? What I would recommend is saying, hey, I noticed that you're not chatting very much. And when I tried to get your attention, you ended up looking away. What's going on? Are we okay? By the way, that's a really good question to ask. Are we okay? Because that lets them know that you're just checking in, and maybe you're feeling a little insecure about it, but just, hey, are we okay, man? And usually what you'll find out is it had nothing to do with you. Yes, you're okay. And there's something else on their mind, something else they're dealing with that you had no idea about. That is usually the case. Not always. Every now and then they will have something against you, or they will have something they're feeling guilty about, or whatever. Every now and then our story is true, but you got to check. So another way to go about it, and again, it depends on your relationship with the person. With my best friend and with my mom, who I'm very close to, I can say, hey, so this is what I'm observing. The story I'm telling myself is this. Can you please let me know what's going on? 9 times out of 10, I'm wrong. So hopefully that gives you some tips on how to challenge the story, to recognize that there is a story, and then to check and make sure, is it right? Is it wrong? And what's really going on here? So I hope you found that helpful. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you do that you find helpful that I didn't mention. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear it. If you did find this useful, please hit like. And if you like my content, please subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else you would like me to touch on. Thank you. Have a good day.